Hi, I'm John Kormanik. I am the CEO and head coach at John Kormanik Coaching. And today we're going to talk about the importance of associate attorneys, retaining top talent, recruiting top talent, and how important they are to your law firm. I'm going to talk about why associates leave, and you're going to get some strategies to help you retain them. We're going to talk about the impact of turnover, reasons that associate attorneys leave, and again, actionable retention strategies to have them stay. They are not only important to your law firm, they are a significant investment by you in your law firm. So let's get right down to it. Let's talk about the impact of turnover on your law firm when associate attorneys leave. There are many different impacts. The first one that we're going to discuss are the financial costs, the impact financially to you and your firm. Of course, there are financial costs associated with recruiting, especially if you use a recruiting agency. There are some top-notch recruiting agencies out there. If you use a recruiting agency, there's going to be costs involved. There's costs in onboarding, what I call the gap between when an associate is an expense to when they become a profit center. So there's cost in hiring and in that gap. And there's also cost in training, how you do things at your law firm. Each law firm has a specific way of doing things. You should have uh, systems that you use to best serve your clients in an effective and efficient way. When you hire associates, they need to be trained up. And so that recruitment, that hiring, that training expenses, those are all financial costs. They may seem to you like time costs, and they are that as well, but financial costs, they do affect your bottom line. Then we have the loss of productivity from the departing associate. You no longer have a person in that seat. When you no longer have a person in that seat, it means that the work can't get done, is done by someone not as qualified, or is done by someone who ought not be doing the work like you. You ought not be doing, if you are the managing partner of a mid-sized law firm, you ought not be doing associate work that associates can do. Then we have the fact that many, if not most, law firms are at capacity. When you are at capacity and one of the people leave, one of your associates leave, what does that do to your capacity? Well, the work doesn't go away. The work is still there. You just don't have the ability to get it done at the high level that you are used to doing it and that you want it done. So we have recruitment, hiring, and training expenses. We have that loss of productivity and the hit to the billable hours in your bottom line. Then we have what the replacement costs are. So let's talk about that for a moment. I read a study not too terribly long ago that talked about replacing a highly trained, highly competent, highly productive 3 to 5 year associate in your law firm. The number was staggering to me, although upon reflection, it should not have been surprising. That number was between $200,000 and $500,000, real dollars, to replace a highly trained, highly skilled 3 to 5 year associate. Other studies tell us that it's between 50 and 200% of the annual salary for that associate. I don't know where the 50% comes from. I think that is just the replacement cost. It might be recruiting, hiring, and potentially a little training expenses, but it does not account for the loss of productivity, especially not in today's world where recruiting is so challenging. Recruiting talent is so challenging across the globe. I coach lawyers around the world, And they all tell me recruiting is a challenge. Recruiting top talent is a challenge. And you don't want to settle. You don't want to settle for not top talent. And so 200 to $500,000, 200% of an associate's annual salary, that is real financial dollars. That is a real cost. Finances are not the only cost, though. Let's talk about the cultural impact when someone leaves your firm. It has the potential, the real potential, to erode firm culture. It has your team, the remaining team, looking around and thinking, is there something better out there? Or what happened where my friend felt like they had to leave? So we have the potential of eroding culture. And of course, we have the challenges in team integration and morale, right? When you bring someone new in, you have to integrate them into the team. Culturally, a fit is so very important, but there's still going to be some growing pains. And you have the potential to overwork and push towards burnout the remaining people when an associate leaves. And so we have financial costs, we have the cultural impact, and then we have motivation and engagement. The effect of a colleague leaving on the remaining staff. What is that effect? If their good friend, not necessarily their best friend, but maybe their best friend, but their good friends remain behind. What is the impact on them, on the remaining colleagues and staff? What is the impact? And then we have a domino effect on motivation and productivity, right? Highly trained associate leaves and the work has to go somewhere. We have science that tells us and studies that tell us when a well-liked individual leaves a law firm, other people are demotivated. They don't necessarily pick up the slack. They're not necessarily as effective and efficient. Um, so we've got motivation and engagement, that impact when someone leaves. We've got the cultural impact. And of course, we have the financial impact. And finally, we have productivity losses. On your dashboard, and yes, you should have a dashboard where you can look at key performance indicators or metrics for your law firm. You should be able to see the direct impact on productivity when an associate leaves. If they're billing at whether they're billing at 1,200 hours a year, 1,800 hours a year, or 2,200 hours a year, there's going to be a direct impact. And there's going to be a lag between their replacement getting to that level. So we have that direct effect. Then we have indirect productivity impacts. Again, the motivation and engagement, the cultural impact, and we have other people doing work that they're not necessarily as good at, right? If you have an associate that's trained in trust and estates, and they leave and you borrow someone from the real estate group to plug the hole, to fill in the gap because they have the bandwidth to do it, they're not going to be as productive. So that's an indirect productivity impact. And then, of course, for productivity losses, we have delays and errors during transitional periods, right? That gap between an associate being an expense and a profit center, that gap between an associate coming on board and being trained up, there's going to be gaps there. And so there are real impacts to turnover: financial, cultural, motivational, and productivity. Let's take a look at why associates leave law firms. Why do they leave? And it's not just because they're different than you are. Side note, almost every single founder or managing partner or partner in a law firm who I speak with says to me something along the lines of, and I'm condensing all of it to, I don't understand these darn kids. It's a different generation that we're working with, especially in the law, in a multi-generational law firm. We have boomers like me, all the way down to Gen Zers, and whoever the new crop is coming up. There's multiple generations, and so I don't understand these darn kids is a constant refrain. So let's look at why these kids, quote unquote, and I love them. I understand the value of associate attorneys. I'm not using kids in a pejorative way. I'm using it generationally. So let's talk about why associates leave law firms. Number one is a lack of career advancement opportunities. There's a lack of perceived growth, or the, the path to growth is not there. The path to partnership is not there. Especially if you're a smaller law firm, you have to have a clearly defined path to partnership and ownership, or folks are, your associate attorneys are going to leave. You must have a clear path to partnership and ownership, or your associates will leave. Challenging work. Are you challenging your associates? Lawyers do hard things. Your associates can do hard things. Are you challenging them? Do you know what challenges them? Do you know what challenges excite them? Things to think about. So, number one is a lack of career advancement opportunities. Number two is an improper life work blend. Now, I'm going to spend a minute here. If you know me or you've read anything about this subject area that I have written, you know that I think work-life balance is baloney. It doesn't exist. There's a recent article in Forbes about this. Work-life balance doesn't exist. It is a construct set up for failure. Number one, that's really important to know. Number two, I always put life first. Always. I will always put life first. And I'm a boomer. I always put life first in the equation. And you ought to think about it that way too. So let's talk about life work imbalance or misblend. High pressure environments naturally lead to burnout. Period. Full stop. End of story. High pressure environments naturally lead to burnout. So associates leave because they're not given the tools to deal with burnout, or are not given the opportunities to identify what their burnout triggers are. There are 6 of them, and how to effectively navigate through challenging times to the other side. It's a roller coaster, or at best, and at worst, it is high pressure all the time. That is a recipe for burnout. So, and that is a life work imbalance. And then they have a desire for flexibility and manageable workloads. You don't want to bury them. They'll leave. They are, and I don't judge this, but they are not as loyal as previous generations, and for good reason. They grew up in a time where their parents' companies weren't necessarily loyal to them. It's something to recognize. It's not something to celebrate. It's something to recognize, and it's within your power to build loyalty. So, a desire for flexibility and manageable workloads is really important. Finally, we have this generational shift. This, I don't understand these darn kids. They don't want what I wanted. Yeah, that's true. There's a generational shift that has taken us beyond financial compensation. There are multiple studies out there that money only gets so far as a motivator. Once we're at a level where our needs are satisfied, and that level can be variable depending on the individual and, for example, their student loan debt or their chapter in life, kids, no kids, private school, you get it. And so there's this generational shift beyond financial compensation. What's those things are taken care of? Other things matter. And people understand that now, especially since the pandemic. People understand it. And so associates want professional development and mentorship. It's really important to them. They want the ability to have continuous learning and a structured mentorship, not just a check-in occasionally, but a structured mentorship. They want flexibility and life work integration, flexible working hours, remote options. We hear this tug and pull. I coach clients again all over the world, and there's this tug about in office, not in office. As with everything, there are two sides to the coin. There are pluses and minuses in everything. This is true with in office and remote working hours. It's also important to understand that the science has developed and is developing and continues to develop that some people are more effective at certain hours of the day and other people's are more effective at different hours of the day. Why would you have someone come and work when they are not in their effective window? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from a business perspective. So, flexible working hours and remote options. It's really important for the work and the core values of people to be aligned. Values and societal impact. What is the firm doing? How is it transmitted to the associates, to the team members? How do they know what the firm is doing? It's really important to be in that space because folks want their work to matter. They want it to matter not just from a financial standpoint, they want it to matter from an impact standpoint, from a global standpoint. Recognition and inclusivity is another reason why people leave. I'm not recognized, or I am recognized in a way that I don't appreciate, or isn't natural, or doesn't feel good to me, right? If you have someone who is uncomfortable with public recognition, it's on you to know that and not throw them a party to celebrate when they're just going to shrink inside, right? That's leadership. Leadership is knowing your team. And yes, I'm going to use the word catering to them. That is important. Effective leadership means I see you, I hear you, I recognize you, and I treat you the way that you want to be treated. That is effective leadership. So, recognition and inclusivity, having an inclusive workplace culture, recognizing contributions are so important. And this is not everybody gets a medal type stuff, right? Last place gets a medal. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about associates doing hard things. Yes, they do hard things, just like you do hard things. Recognizing it, stopping and recognizing it. Lawyers are terrible at celebrating, generally speaking. A big trial win, sure. But short of that, celebrating is not really a thing in the legal culture. It ought to be. It's motivational. It is important to retention, what we're talking about here, and it needs to be tailored. So, inclusive workplace culture and recognition of contributions. So, let's talk about, in the time that we have left, which is fewer than 6 minutes, let's talk about strategies to enhance retention. They're the other side of the coin of why associates leave. You must have a clear path to advancement, transparent career trajectories, and regular development meetings, not an annual evaluation. That's not it. That's not going to get it done. That is not going to build a culture of retention at your law firm. Regular means regular. It could be as frequently as weekly. Leadership training and allowing significant responsibilities, consummate with skill level, of course, to your associates. training is so important, mentorship is so important, and coaching is really important. Focus on life work blend, life work balance, right? Having clear policies on flexible hours, on remote work, on wellness programs, having wellness programs for your folks. There are a bunch of free things out there, from meditation to other things that focus on employee wellness. I know that the ABA has their website has a whole bunch of things for wellness. It's really important to have a wellness program that's clearly defined. Encourage your folks to have a healthy lifestyle and manage their stress appropriately. Instead of going for happy hours, go for a hike. How about that? Go for a hike. Instead of you as the leader, as the example setter, eating lunch at your desk, get outside. When you come across a highly functioning associate, encourage them to get outside, encourage them to take a break. The science of flow tells us the value of being out in nature to productivity, to focus, and to quality of work product. Do you know the values of your associates? Do you know what they value? If you don't, that's on you. It's not on them to come to you and say, these are my core values. It's on you to discover them. So go and do that, and you're going to create a connection and, like we talked about before, that loyalty. Support pro bono work. Don't just give them pro bono work, support it. Have community service activities that you do, that your firm does, that you're involved in, and have sustainable practices, whether that's recyclables or whatever, right? Find out what they want and then think about how to go about creating that. Have an outstanding communication and mentorship system, robust, and it ought to be a system. It is not a one off. It is accessible mentors, robust feedback mechanism, frequent feedback. We know from a performance standpoint that a frequent and robust feedback loop is critical. And it's going to create engagement, and it's going to wind up in retention. And of course, open door policies with a caveat. If you're doing deep work, close your door. Train your folks. Okay, I have open door unless the door is closed, of course. I have open door from this time to this time. Come and see me. Do team building activities. Some lawyers think those are kind of goofy. Do them. There are things that you can do that don't cost a lot of money, that don't involve a lot of time, that create this culture of retention, make people want to stay. We are coming in for a landing, so here we go. It is critical that you develop a way to retain your top talent. That is not only going to save you money, it's going to improve your productivity of the law firm, and it's going to improve your bottom line. You have to retain your associates. Implement strategies for advancement, balance or blend, values alignment, and communication. Those are all three super important. If you are a law firm leader, if you are a managing partner, if you are a practice area leader, and you have questions about this, or you have turnover, or you don't know how to lead, you don't know how to talk to the kids, ping me, send me an email, john@johnrkormanik.com. Go to my website, johnrkormanik.com. Take a look, see, there are resources there. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Retaining your talent is critical to the success of your law firm. Are you doing enough to make sure that that happens? We're at time. Take care. Be well. Until next time.